worry, you're not dreaming, because yes, it is finally happening. Since Season 2 has just started and the patch is just ending, I thought this would be the perfect time to get some Zenless Zone0 lore content to you guys. Season 2 has definitely been a promising start to the next era of ZZZ, with the quest serving as a great commentary on capitalism, grief, as well as the many trials and tribulations that come with leadership. Not only do we get the opportunity to learn more about the effects of Hollow Zero, but also the Exaltists and their ever so twisted plans for New Eridu. Now, I know that skip button can be ever so tempting, and sometimes we may miss things the first time, but that's what I'm here for, because today we are here to discuss all the ins and outs of the 2.0 main story quest, Where Clouds Embrace the Dawn. Please remember that this video is very spoiler heavy and includes lore crafting, lore analysis, and speculations on the 2.0 patch. So if you haven't played it yet and don't want to be spoiled, pause this video and I will be here when you get back. With that being said, let's get into the video. The quest begins with a conversation between Belle and Wise. The two of them are preparing for the upcoming investigation, but the incident, based on what little knowledge they have at the time, sounds pretty tricky. If they go through with the investigation, Belle and Wise would need to leave 6th Street and stay hidden for a while in Waifei Peninsula. It is a district located within the Throne Quarter and at the outskirts of the Lemnian Hollow. The Lemnian Hollow is located in the northwest of the Old Capital Chasm and resides at a considerable distance from the citizens of New Eridu. However, it is also the most active among the hollows in New Eridu, with the residential areas being frequently troubled by the presence of its companion hollows. During their stay in Waifei Peninsula, Belle and Wise would have to keep their identities a secret as they carry out their investigation, but also they will have to join the Yunquei Summit as their new disciples, but only temporarily, of course. The Yunquei Summit is a faction operating in Waifei Peninsula, with their main purpose being to, well, protect the citizens of Waifei Peninsula in general, but also from the many Exaltists residing there. The Yunquei Summit has a pretty lengthy history dating all the way back to the fall of the old capital of Eridu. Such a powerful and important faction must have a leader, and that leader is the one and only Yixuan, who is going to teach Belle and Wise on how to control their new etheric powers. The next day, in a quick debrief with the mayor, he explains that he had received a notice from the HIA. They informed him that their Lemnian Hollow observation data had been showing abnormal readings, and unfortunately, the situation is the worst around the Waifei Peninsula ruins. The only thing is, the location is currently the Porcelain Production Center under TOP's management. Porcelain is a special material used to block ether, but because of the abnormalities going on in that area, porcelain production had been slowed down, which is obviously not great. The mayor shares an image with the siblings, and in that image is the one and only Carol Anna. The only thing is, Carol Anna is supposed to be dead. So what the heck is she doing all the way in Waifei Peninsula? Although to Belle and Wise, their initial feelings of knowing Carol Anna is alive, of course, at first, they're pretty over the moon, but they just can't shake the fact that something is massively off about this entire situation. Maybe before they make any conclusions, it would be best to investigate and verify the truth first. I mean, the photo does look like it's been taken inside of a hollow, and the photo does contain miasma in the background. And what makes miasma so dangerous is that it corrupts the mind and drives whoever comes into contact with it straight to madness and eventually into a transformation of an ethereal. If Carol Anna is truly alive, then why would she choose to go to a place as dangerous as that? All that they know is that none of their questions can be answered until they get there. Their conversation is then interrupted by the arrival of Yixuan, who is ready to escort one sibling while the other stays behind. But don't worry, it's only for a moment to tune the temporary HDD device. With a quick costume change, Belle and Yixuan journey to Waifei Peninsula on an airship. But as the two get closer, the airship is shot down into the Lemnian Hollow. Airship debris is on fire everywhere, and Belle decides to swiftly search for Yixuan. Shortly after, the two manage to find each other, and Yixuan deduces that the airship had been attacked with a ranged weapon, which means someone is deliberately trying to harm them. But why? Regardless, the identity of the attackers right now is not important. What is important is getting out of the hollow, which should be quite easy since Yixuan had anticipated they could run into some trouble and brought a copy of Lemnian Hollow's carrot data. The two manage to finally escape the hollow and they continue on their journey to Waifei Peninsula, which is now a boat's journey away. They wave someone down for help and board a passing cargo ship. And with that, we have made it to Waifei Peninsula. When Bal and Yixuan dock, they are greeted by one of Yunhui Summit's disciples, Jufufu, who gives the most adorable, enthusiastic greeting. She suggests that Yixuan continues on to Swabian Temple while she shows Bal around as they make their way there. During their tour, Bal and Jufufu come across a dispute between some workers and a TOPS employee. One of the workers complains about the compensation or lack of compensation that had been promised to them. The worker explains that they have someone sick at home waiting for them, and that they need the Denny's as soon as possible. Tensions rise, and the group get into a heated discussion. The TOPS employee states that the head of Porcelumex, Master Damien, will deliver accordingly, but if the two continue to display a lack of faith in Master Damien, they will receive nothing at all. According to the captain who rescued Bal and Yixuan, recently there was an accident at the Porcelain production site inside the hollow. And that could be what those workers were demanding compensation over. It's a possibility that the head of Porcelumex may be hiding something. But let's be honest, a company with a corrupt head is not the most surprising thing in New Eridu. Eventually, Bal and Fufu find their way to Swabian Temple and are greeted by the other members, Yinhu and Shuyan. Bal informs the group of the earlier attack, and Shuyan comments that the attack may have been an attempt to obstruct their investigation. Although Swabian Temple has been abandoned for some while, the place is ever so peaceful and comfy. The HDD device in Bal's new room is activated, and on the end of the line is a pretty panicked Wise. Bal reassures her sibling that everything is fine, which it really isn't, but Bal suggests that maybe Wise should stay behind, just to be safe. Which of course Wise is like, absolutely not. Wise also explains that the remote link to the HDD can't handle complex real-time calculations. In order to process all the data they'll be collecting on that investigation, Wise will need to be there in person for live updates. Yixuan was also going to teach the both of them how to adapt their ether powers, so it would make sense for him to be there anyway. Suddenly, a small ruckus can be heard coming from outside. So Bal says goodbye to Wise and goes to investigate. Remember the head of Porcelumex the TOPS employee was talking about earlier? Damien Blackwood is now at the front door of Swabian Temple. He expresses his deepest apologies for the lack of competence regarding the airship attack, and quickly slips in that the group should steer clear of the situation inside Lemnian Hollow, referring to the situation as being rather delicate. He claims that the production of Porcelume is the highest priority and it should not be disturbed, which Jufufu quickly calls out, stating that there was literally a safety accident in the production area that injured many of the workers. Since Yunhui Summit's main duty is to protect citizens from the Hollow, they basically have the jurisdiction to investigate. But Damien doubles down and emphasizes how the last thing they should do is get involved. Besides, the workers, according to Damien, had already been compensated for the incident. But something is fishy. Damien claims that he had already compensated the workers for the incident, but that claim differs to what Bal and Jufufu had seen in the dispute they witnessed earlier. All they know is Damien, as of this moment, cannot be trusted. However, if they're going to continue with their investigation, they are going to have to be very careful of any unwanted eyes that could be watching them. The group will have to divide and conquer. Yixuan decides that Bal, Fufu, Yinhu, and herself will go to question the workers on what really happened inside the production area. While the group are questioning the workers, they meet a worker named Paolo and someone named Minato who is very hostile. He also threatens to punch Bal and assumes that Bal is an employee of Porcelumex. Bal corrects him, stating that she is from Swabian Temple, and Minato quickly changes his composure and apologizes for his behavior. His emotions at the moment are quite heightened because his friend is currently in the hospital due to the incident. But the incident was actually a lot worse than what it originally sounded to be, with Paolo referring to it as a corruption incident. Paolo had seen the entire situation unfold before his very eyes. He watched as his co-workers were corrupted by miasma. Typically, those who work inside the Hollow must wear protective equipment and take anti-corruption medicine frequently. If they don't, they will be corrupted by the ether. The majority of those working in the Hollow have already suffered from ether corruption after the fall of the old capital. Because of this, they need to take the anti-corruption medicine as a form of long-term treatment, with Porcelumex providing said medicine to all of its workers. But that's the thing. This time, the medicine seems to be what is causing the workers to get sick, making workers collapse and experience corruption outbreaks. Paolo had heard Dr. Law saying that there was something wrong with the medicine and that it was ineffective. Because of the incident, Damien had ordered a lockdown on the area and forbade the workers from going anywhere near it, and that is where they can discover the truth. Paolo informs Belle that he has a friend who can help the group get into the Hollow. Yunque's summit is well regarded by many citizens in Waifei Peninsula, and this is mostly because of what happened in the past. When the old capital fell, the members of Yunque's summit helped evacuate civilians, and some of them were relocated to Waifei Peninsula. Before the group set off to return to the temple, Yixuan shares a quick conversation with Belle regarding ether manipulation. In order to master such techniques, one must first be able to sense ether frequencies and resonate with them. But acupoints must be balanced to ensure energy can flow smoothly through you. According to traditions, an entire ritual must be carried out in order to meet these conditions. However, Yixuan had discovered a more simplified version of the ritual. All they need is the right time and a suitable location with the right feng shui, and at the moment of contact, a gentle, warm current slowly flows through her body. Belle is ready to start her ether manipulation journey. The day is getting late, and the two decide to return to the temple to get some rest. The next day arrives, and the group sets off into the Hollow with Paolo as their escort. Once they enter, they meet one of the production site workers named Eric, who is the head of Porcelumex's labor union. Porcelumex is completely unwilling to compensate the workers who were victims of the corruption incident, and the reason as to why is pretty messed up. They are basically saying the workers can't prove that the medicine given to them by Porcelumex was the cause of the corruption. To sweep everything under the rug, they can just claim that those who ended up hospitalized had been hospitalized due to a pre-existing condition. And although we all know how ridiculous that claim is, it kinda checks out. Earlier, Paolo explained that many of the workers at Porcelumex had already suffered from ether corruption, which means them ending up in the hospital due to a pre-existing condition of ether corruption is, albeit highly unethical, yet a perfect story for them. The goal of Eric's plan is to ultimately search for evidence that proves that the medicine given to them was ineffective. Now, here is where Dr. Law comes in. Dr. Law has been pretty supportive of the workers' union and has been supplying anti-corruption medicine to the workers so that they could get a break from Porcelumex's control. But the medicine Dr. Law has been providing doesn't exactly sound safe. Regardless, the workers are fixated on achieving their goal. To find out more, the group meet up with Dr. Law, and when questioned of his methods to make his anti-corruption medicine, he explains that he had discovered an old Porcelumex production line, and that he had been using that to create a new type of medicine he named Alleviating Water, said to alleviate people's corruption symptoms and help them escape Porcelumex's trap. He claims that Porcelumex have never wanted to cure those working in the Hollow. By providing the workers with weaker medicine, good enough to slow down the progression of their illnesses, the workers would basically be stuck working for Porcelumex forever, which is why he decided to start giving the workers his own alleviating water. All they need now is some strong evidence, and Porcelumex will finally be beaten. Dr. Law suggests that the group should investigate the abandoned area. Although the place is ridden with ethereals as well as dense amounts of miasma, there has got to be some compelling evidence there. After making their way throughout the Hollow, they come across Dr. Law's bamboo, which guides them to the evidence they were searching for. They reach the area where the corruption breakouts had occurred and collect some samples to support their evidence further. They return back to Dr. Law and realize that they finally have what they need to take down Porcelumex. They leave the Hollow and decide to regroup in the morning. But in the morning, there are quite a few disgruntled workers saying what Porcelumex did is unforgivable. Dr. Law has made the investigation results public, and because of this, there is a crowd gathering to protest against Porcelumex. Shortly after hearing the news, Belle goes to check out the protest, where they are greeted by Eric and Paolo. They explain that they are preparing to confront Damien, and that they want to find some more victims to rally against Porcelumex. When Belle returns to Swabian Temple, she finds Wise, who had just arrived. Belle catches Wise up to speed, but also expresses her reservations on the situation. Something just doesn't feel right. I guess they have to go to Damien himself, who happens to be waiting at the entrance of the temple. His attitude is no longer arrogant, but friendly, which catches the group off guard. The workers have started protesting, and Damien says that he is doing his best to process compensation quickly. That doesn't exactly match what Dr. Law and the workers had been saying. Damien explains that this is all just a misunderstanding. He had applied for proper compensation and was just waiting for everything to be approved. According to Dr. Law, Damien had stopped him from practicing medicine, which Damien agrees to and explains that Dr. Law doesn't even have a medical license, which is why Damien was against him providing illegal treatment to the workers. Damien also suspects that there is something wrong with Dr. Law's methods, and that maybe his intentions aren't as pure as he says they are, especially considering that Dr. Law had been convincing workers to switch sides and start taking his medicine instead of Porcelumex's. The effectiveness of his medicine is questionable, and yet Dr. Law has gained so many followers and Denny's from it. but his pricing is pretty low, so he can't be earning a huge amount of money from distributing it. Maybe he's not trying to earn money, but maybe something else. But what could he want more than money? Is he truly doing this out of the goodness of his heart? The group decides to split up to investigate further in hopes of uncovering some real answers to their many pending questions. Belle notices a very concerned monitor searching for Paolo, who had taken his wife into the hollow to get anti-corruption medicine from Dr. Law. Once returned to the Swabian temple, Wise informs the group on the report he had been verifying. He explains that Damien really did file a claim, but the amount of compensation is still being determined. Which means he wasn't lying. Which means Dr. Law may have actually been the one who was lying. On Fufu's investigation, she had asked a few workers who had drank Dr. Law's alleviating water and what they had experienced while taking it. Many of them recalled the medicine not only helped with their pain, but also made them drowsy and have strange dreams, like being able to dream of fond memories, even family members who had passed away. The symptoms sound an awful lot like symptoms of miasma corruption. And if that's the case, Dr. Law's alleviating water is not medicine but drinkable miasma. By raising suspicion of Porcelumex's medicine and preying on the workers' pre-existing issues with the company, Dr. Law was able to pull the wool over the workers' eyes. But why? All the group knows is that they have to confront Dr. Law. So the next stop is the treatment zone in Lemnian Hollow. But first, they decide to search for Paolo. And when they find Paolo, he is writhing in pain. Paolo and his wife had drank the alleviating water. As Fufu and Yinhu approach to help Paolo, he is overwhelmed by corruption and runs away deeper into the hollow. He did this as a last resort to avoid hurting anyone, but it's too late. His ghastly screams can be heard in the distance as he transforms into an ethereal. As the group venture further into the hollow, there are patients everywhere, all of them victims to the alleviating water, and with Dr. Law nowhere to be found. Their symptoms are worsening, and Yixuan tries her best to temporarily stabilize their conditions. Since there was an abandoned production line here, we know that Dr. Law had never actually used it to make his alleviating water, so maybe, just maybe, there is some real anti-corruption medicine there. After obtaining the real anti-corruption medicine, the group arrived at the area the patients were gathered. But to their dismay, Dr. Law had already got to the patients before them and had taken some of them with him. They helped the remaining patients and set off to find Dr. Law. And when they do, he is stood with a group of Exaltists. Dr. Law is an Exaltist, which means this situation is bad. Very bad. The workers, according to Dr. Law, should be honored to be selected as sacrifices to the creator. He never wanted to cure or even help anyone. Instead, he wanted to distribute his medicine to turn workers and patients into ethereals. Through the growing tensions between the workers and Damien, Dr. Law was able to spread rumors and ultimately convince more people to take his alleviating medicine. Everyone who took his medicine is in danger. The group are forced to fight off ethereals and Exaltists, and Dr. Law manages to escape. They eventually leave the hollow and agree to go back to Dr. Law's clinic in search of some leads. But when they get there, the door is already unlocked. It appears that the clinic had already been ransacked until they come across a hidden compartment in one of the doors, containing some IDs and a flash drive. As Belle and Jifufu are about to leave, they notice Monoto, who had also been searching for Dr. Law. Paolo's daughter was worried about him and wanted to see him. Paolo was a good father who had always put his family first. Now, Paolo had lost his life because of Dr. Law. Everyone who had been taking the alleviating water must be told the truth. They need to spread the news and they need to spread it fast. And Belle and Fufu return to the temple with the flash drive. While Wise is analyzing it, Yinhu and Shuyan explain how despite them attempting to tell the workers the truth, many of them refuse to believe that the alleviating water was a scam, with a lot of them believing it to be a rumor spread by Porcelumex. Unfortunately, the claws the Exaltists and Dr. Law have on the workers is just too deep. They have successfully indoctrinated the workers and made them believe that they can trust them. Despite many of the workers not accepting the truth, there were some who believed Youngquay's summit. There were also still workers inside the hollow along with Eric, but if the group at least get to Eric, he should be able to sway some opinions. Shuyan agrees, but also thinks that they should inform Damien of what is happening since he should have the right connections to get the word out. Although they don't exactly trust him, he is their best shot at getting the word out fast. Since the group returned from the hollow, Yixuan had been acting a little strange. Yun tells Belle that Yixuan wants to speak with her in private. This could be the perfect opportunity to find out what is going on with her. During their encounter with the Exaltists in the Hollow, Belle was briefly corrupted by miasma, which Yixuan quickly eradicated. She asked Belle if she had experienced anything strange like seeing something from the past, in which Belle agrees. Everything was so warm and peaceful. It was like a dream. But also, Belle had heard a strange voice luring her to go deeper into the Hollow. When Yixuan had awoken her, she felt disappointment and frustration, almost like she had been pulled from a sweet dream she never wanted to leave. In the moment that Yixuan had touched Belle, she had seen a strange image of Yixuan talking to a seriously injured person, and that person looked a lot like Yixuan. It was a fragment of her memories. Yixuan had encountered miasma many times in the past, but her experience in comparison to others was quite different. Others described it as beautiful memories of the past, with some of them refusing to leave the miasma just to hold on to that feeling. However, Yixuan's memories were far from beautiful. They were cold and cruel. During the fall of the old capital, many of the workers in Weifei Peninsula were rescued by Yonghui Summit. But after that, Yonghui Summit abandoned Swabian Temple and never returned until recently. Because of this, Tops had taken control of the entire region, something that which Yixuan regards as a mistake. When the old capital fell, Yonghui Summit assisted the military. As a result, many lives were lost and almost all of the 12th generation disciples were gone. The one and only person to survive was Yixuan. Yizhang was the high preceptor at the time, and despite her losing her life, she was still held accountable for her leadership. Tops reached an agreement with Yonghui Summit, and they withdrew from the city. The area was taken over by Tops, and Tops started mining porcelain and managing the resettlement of the refugees. Before Yixuan can continue, a commotion of a crowd can be heard coming from outside Swabian Temple. Ether is scattered all around the city, and many citizens can be seen struggling with the ether corruption. Dr. Law had gotten to each and every one of them, which means the situation is now in the worst state it could possibly be in. Yixuan tries her best to slow down that corruption, but there's just no use. There are too many people who need help and too little an amount of time. If they don't act fast, the ether will flood the entire block. So Yixuan comes up with a plan, her last resort. She provides every member of Yonghui Summit with a talisman sigil. Each of them take their sigils, go in different directions, and place them down. Once they're in position, Yixuan is able to neutralize the excess ether, erase the patient's corruption symptoms, and save everyone. The last resort was a success, but something is wrong with Yixuan. It appears that the technique she used involved absorbing the ether into her own body, and it was now taking its toll on her. In fact, most techniques from Yonghui Summit work this way. The stronger the spell, the greater the cost. And this is the cost. The next day, the group greeted with Eric, who is devastated by the news of Dr. Law and his schemes. There are rumors circulating that Porcelumix's medicine is at fault. No one realizes that the ones perpetuating the entire situation is the Exaltists, not Porcelumix. Not even Eric has power or influence now, with the workers not even believing him. It may be a possibility that Dr. Law has always had Exaltists around him in the Union, using Eric as a pawn to get past Porcelumix's background checks. The workers are planning to gather in the Hollow to prepare for a large-scale protest. But the last time the workers had gathered within the Hollow, they were sacrificed and turned into ethereals. The protest may be a ploy to lure more people into the Hollow for the Exaltists, which means the group has to act pretty fast. Before they're about to leave, they get a call from Damien, who informs them that he wants to provide emergency anti-corruption medicine for free to all citizens from Swabian Temple. If the source is from Swabian Temple, the citizens will be more likely to accept it, which means they might be able to get the truth out effectively and stop an outbreak from happening. After analyzing the data of the flash drive, Wise explains that there is a list detailing who had taken the alleviating water and when. Every person who had recently fallen ill in the city had also taken the alleviating water, which further confirms that it is actually the cause of the outbreak. Not that we really needed any more confirmation. The Exaltists had been waiting for the perfect moment, using the corruption outbreak to indoctrinate people and influence them to taking the alleviating water. Dr. Law had contaminated the medicine from the beginning, thus triggering the corruption outbreak. And the corruption outbreak in the Hollow? It was just a test run. Several data observation points had been marked out, which also shows high level of miasma fluctuations, and one of those points may be where the Exaltists are hiding. The only thing left to do is to go and investigate. After journeying through the Hollow, they eventually catch up with Dr. Law, who is in a deranged state praising the Creator. He then injects the serum into himself and begins to transform into an ethereal. His eerie shrieks of final words can be heard. May the Creator refine me. Somewhere else in the Hollow, the Exaltists are gathered before Mevarak, the Great Overseer, who doesn't seem to be too bothered about Yonghui's summit. Instead, they prepare to proceed with their ritual. Belle catches Yixuan up to date with what is happening, and Yixuan reveals some key information of her past. Her and her sister, Yizhang, had grew up as orphans on the streets, with nothing to their name. No matter what they went through, no matter how much suffering they endured, they never left each other behind. Once they found their way to join Yonghui's summit, everything changed. And everything changed because of the Qingming sword. The Qingming sword is Yonghui's summit's most prized relic, a blade that temporarily grants its wielder the ability of a void hunter. When someone becomes High Preceptor, they receive the Qingming sword. But like Yixuan said earlier, all of Yonghui's summit's techniques come with a cost. Wielding that sword eventually strips away your memories, then your senses, and then your life itself. And that is how Yizhang passed away, by overusing the sword to protect the people of Eridu. After the wielder dies, the sword's power goes berserk and affects everything in its vicinity. Yixuan's last memory of Yizhang is Yizhang not recognizing her. Despite not understanding her final actions, Yixuan cannot allow her sister's sacrifice to be in vain. It's time to end this. The group enter the Hollow to track down the Exaltists and convince the workers to leave whilst clearing out as much miasma as they can. Fairy detects an abnormal area emitting large amounts of unusual energy signals. The Exaltists had hidden a large amount of miasma at the gathering site. The group had been obtaining footage throughout their journey in the Hollow, and with that footage, they are able to finally convince some of the protesters to leave the Hollow. They also come across a suspicious miasma device that appears to contain traces of miasma in it. Although they don't know exactly what it is right now, they decide to take it back with them and investigate it later. Based off of where it was found, it may be a way for the Exaltists to control the miasma, which is not the greatest of news if that ends up being true. Shortly after, they reach the ritual site, where they find the Overseer, who is now not so pleased to see Yonghui's summit, and states that they will not defy the will of the Creator. All that's left to do is defeat him. During their intense battle, fragments of Yizhang's memories are exposed to Yixuan. What she did wasn't to save the world, but to save her sister Yixuan. Yixuan never found out what her sister's last words to her were, but in this moment, she is finally able to hear her sister's final words. My Yixuan, live on. This is our promise. Her sister's strength is what allows Yixuan to defeat the Overseer, and the Exaltists Plan is finally brought to an end. All evil is purged. Or is it? Because at the end of the quest, it is revealed that the Overseer was not in fact defeated, and is somehow able to resurrect through miasma. Through his battle with Yixuan, he was able to obtain a very important memory. Let's just say, well, he was able to create an ethereal copy of Yizhang, leaving us with many questions and me personally with a mountain of anxiety. And with that, Chapter 1 of Season 2, Where Clouds Embrace the Dawn, comes to its close. Yixuan is not only the sole survivor, but she is left to pick up the pieces her sister left behind. With the fall of the old capital, we know that Yonghui's summit in particular was summoned to assist the military. And during that time, each and every member of Yonghui's summit perished. An entire generation was sacrificed in order to save those in the disaster. And that was done all under the leadership of Yizhang. Each High Preceptor is given the Qingming sword as a token and symbol of their role in Yonghui's summit. Although it is a mighty privilege, it is a privilege that comes with a cost. When used, it takes the mind of the user and eventually their life. When Yizhang became High Preceptor, her and Yixuan made a promise to not make the same mistake of using the sword, and to never abandon each other. They instead began researching techniques based on the Qingming sword in order to find a way to suppress its deadly side effects. And this is where the little fellow Yixuan carries around with her comes from. Qingming is a result of one of the many special techniques that Yixuan and Yizhang had discovered together. So now, it feels as though Yizhang is always with Yixuan wherever she goes. The Qingming bird and Yixuan are inseparable, with even Yinhu commenting on the way that the Qingming bird looks at him sometimes is exactly like Yixuan's gaze, and that he is not exactly sure who's copying who. But although Yixuan has a part of her sister with her, it doesn't change the fact that her sister is gone. Yixuan is carrying a mountain of grief around with her, and throughout this quest, we witness how that grief taunts her. The way she lives her life, as well as how she behaves as High Preceptor, is heavily influenced by this grief and trauma. The harsh truth is that Yixuan has mixed emotions towards her sister. Yes, Yixuan can understand why as High Preceptor Yizhang would choose to sacrifice herself, but Yixuan can't help but feel abandoned and betrayed. because ultimately, Yijang had broken their promise and inevitably destroyed herself using the Qingming sword, forcing Yixuan to slowly watch her sister die. Because of her sister's actions, Yixuan tries her best to avoid resorting to the lengths Yijang did. And yet, in this quest, we witness Yixuan using dangerous techniques to save the city. The only difference between them is, Yixuan refuses to commit the same mistake of sacrificing another generation of Younghui Summit. They would not pay the same devastating price ever again. At the end of the quest, we get a pretty important lore bomb. Not only can Overseer Meverak resurrect himself through miasma, but also use miasma to create ethereal copies of people through memories. Through his battle with Yixuan, he was able to utilize her memories of her sister Yijang to create an ethereal copy of her, which is terrifying to say the least. But why did Overseer Meverak specifically want to make an ethereal copy of Yijang? The reason may simply be for power, more so Yijang's power. Yijang not only was the second last standing of her generation, but she was able to surpass the limit of the Qingming sword, exhausting every bit of energy to save those in distress, which not only takes an insane amount of strength, but is a highlight of how powerful she was. Assuming her resurrection will bring her back in the state she was before she died, which was her no longer recognizing Yixuan. By resurrecting her through miasma, Yijang will no longer have those ties to her sister, and instead will be a berserk and powerful puppet for the Exaltists to use at their disposal. If she is defeated, they could potentially just bring her back again. If the Exaltists are able to bring back an ethereal form of Yijang, who is next on their target list? All I'm going to say is that I am shaking in my boots thinking of what will happen when Yixuan is faced with an ethereal version of what was once her sister. Like, can we give this lady a break? Her entire life has already been a complete tragedy. After finishing this quest, there are many questions lurking. What are the Exaltists planning? Why have they brought an ethereal version of Yijang back? But also, where the heck is Carol Anna? It's safe to say that the introduction to the next arc in ZZZ has been pretty strong, and I can't wait to see where the story takes us next. With that being said, we've reached the end of our time together today. Please feel free to let me know in the comments your personal thoughts and theories on what we discussed. And as always, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.